The quality of your thoughts shapes your reality. That isn't just some motivational quote to make you feel better for a moment. It's a universal truth. If you want to transform your life, you must begin with your thoughts, because everything you are, everything you have, and everything you'll become begins in your mind. Your results are just the visible outcome of invisible battles being fought inside your head. And most people never win those battles because they never even realize they're fighting them. You see, we've been taught to focus on our external world. Fix the job, fix the relationship, fix the bank account, fix the schedule. But the outside world is a mirror. It only reflects what's going on inside. You don't fix the reflection in the mirror by wiping the glass. You fix the reflection by changing what's in front of it. If your thinking is chaotic, negative, small, or filled with self-doubt, your life will mirror that chaos no matter how hard you hustle. You can't outperform your own mindset. You can't live a life of peace and abundance while being dominated by thoughts of fear and scarcity. And let me be clear, your mind is not just passively thinking, it is constantly creating. It's working 24/7, whether you're aware of it or not, shaping your behavior, your confidence, your decisions, and ultimately your identity. That's why some people live in the same circumstances as others, but produce radically different results. Because one person has thoughts of power and possibility, while the other has thoughts of limitation and fear. Your brain listens to you. The way you speak to yourself becomes your internal programming, and if you're constantly telling yourself, "I'm not enough, I can't do it, it's too hard, I've always been this way," then don't be surprised when you continue to live that exact same story. You're not stuck because of your situation. You're stuck because of your thinking. Your life is just a physical expression of the conversations happening in your mind every single day. It starts with awareness. You can't change what you're not aware of. Most people go through life thinking the same 60, 0, 0, 0 to 70, 0, 0, 0 thoughts every day, and 90% of them are the same as yesterday. If you don't interrupt that pattern, you live your life on mental autopilot. You wake up, and before your feet even hit the floor, you're thinking the same low-level thoughts: stress, worry, fear, doubt, regret. And then you wonder why the day feels heavy, why the opportunities never seem to come, why you keep attracting the same problems. It's not the world, it's your thoughts. But the beautiful thing is you can change it. You have the power to choose your thoughts. That's where transformation begins. Not with a new year, not with a new job, not with a lucky break, but with a decision to think differently. When you start thinking in alignment with who you want to be instead of who you used to be, your life will begin to shift. Your habits change, your confidence grows, your energy rises. You begin to see solutions where you used to see problems. You start to attract the right people and push away the wrong ones, and it all started by upgrading the quality of your thinking. But let me warn you, it's not easy. Your old thoughts will fight to stay. They're familiar, they're comfortable, but comfort is the enemy of growth. And if you want a new life, you're going to have to get uncomfortable with your old beliefs. You'll have to challenge the thoughts that have been running your life for years, maybe even decades. The thought that says you're too old, too young, not smart enough, not worthy. That kind of thinking has to die for the new version of you to be born. You must take full control of the gate to your mind. That means being intentional about what you allow in, what you read, what you watch, who you listen to, the environments you place yourself in. Because all of that shapes your thoughts, and your thoughts. They shape your feelings shape your actions, and your actions shape your results. So if your results are off, you don't start by hustling harder. You start by thinking better. You can't afford to be casual with your mind. Would you eat poison every day and expect to be healthy? Then why do you consume toxic thoughts and expect a successful life? You've got to guard your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. You have to become the gatekeeper. You have to start feeding your mind with empowering beliefs, intentional gratitude, and relentless vision. You have to create mental momentum toward what you want, not what you fear. And here's the truth most people miss. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be conscious. You have to catch the thoughts that don't serve you and replace them with ones that do. You have to stop saying, I can't, and start asking, how can I? You have to stop telling yourself it's impossible and start asking, what if it works out? Because your brain is always looking for answers. It will follow the questions you feed it. Change your questions and you'll change your outcomes. So yes, the quality of your thoughts shapes your reality, and if that's true, then your only real job, the foundation of every goal, every breakthrough, every transformation, is to master your thinking. Make your mind your ally. Program it with intention. Speak to yourself with belief. Build a mindset that aligns with the life you want, not the one you're trying to escape from. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're not defined by your past. You're not limited by what others think of you. You are the architect of your future, and it all begins in your mind. The question is, will you accept the responsibility? Will you take back control? Will you raise the standard of your thinking to match the life you say you want? Because once you do, the world around you will start to shift in ways you never imagined. Opportunities will show up. Strength will emerge. The right people will appear. And it won't be luck. It won't be chance. It'll be the direct result of a mind that's finally aligned with greatness. So don't just change your schedule. Don't just change your hustle. Change your thoughts, because when you upgrade your thinking, you upgrade your life. Forever, the questions you ask yourself control your direction. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most powerful truths you'll ever understand. Your mind is a search engine, constantly scanning for answers. The quality of your life will never rise above the quality of the questions you repeatedly ask yourself. And the scary thing is, most people don't even realize the questions they're asking. But the results they're living with are proof of those questions. Think about it. Every time something happens in your life, your brain responds with a question. Something doesn't go your way, and you ask, why does this always happen to me? You fail, and you ask, what's wrong with me? You feel stuck, and you ask, why can't I ever get ahead? And without even realizing it, you're programming your mind to find reasons to confirm those beliefs. Because your brain is designed to give you answers, it will find evidence for whatever question you throw at it, even if the answer destroys your confidence. So if you're constantly asking weak questions, you'll constantly live a weak life. That's not judgment, that's reality. Weak questions lead to doubt, excuses, and fear. They lead to hesitation, to blame, to staying small. Strong questions lead to action, clarity, and power. They unlock resilience, vision, and momentum. Your mind is a tool, it's neutral, but your questions decide whether it works for you or against you. That's why successful people don't just think differently. They ask differently. They don't ask, what if I fail? They ask, what's the opportunity here? They don't ask, why is this so hard? They ask, what can I learn from this? When they hit a wall, they don't say, why me? They say, what's next? That shift, just in language, changes their direction entirely. Because while most people are stuck searching for someone to blame, winners are searching for the next move. When you ask better questions, you get better answers. And when you get better answers, you make better decisions. When you make better decisions, your life starts to move in a new direction. It's that simple. But this isn't just about thinking positively. It's about thinking powerfully. It's about training your mind to respond with purpose instead of panic, with intention instead of emotion. Because most people live their lives emotionally reactive instead of strategically intentional. They wait for life to give them answers instead of asking the questions that create them. And here's where it gets deep. The questions you ask yourself are often shaped by your identity. If you see yourself as a victim, you'll ask victim questions. If you see yourself as a leader, you'll ask leader questions. Identity drives thought, and thought drives action. That's why changing your questions can start changing your identity. When you begin to ask, How can I become the type of person who follows through? Or what would the best version of me do in this moment? You're not just looking for answers, you're reshaping who you are. This isn't easy. It takes awareness and repetition. You have to catch yourself. You have to become conscious of your internal dialogue, especially when you're under pressure. That's when most people default to the same weak questions. Why me? Why now? Why does this always happen? You've got to interrupt that pattern. You've got to pause and ask, what's the opportunity here? What can I control right now? What would courage do in this moment? That shift might feel small, but it's massive. It's like switching the compass of your life by a few degrees. At first, it's barely noticeable, but over time it leads you to an entirely new destination. The wrong questions will keep you locked in the past. The right ones will pull you into the future, and if you want to start asking better questions, start by changing your language. Eliminate "why can't I?" and replace it with "how can I?" Eliminate "what if it doesn't work?" and replace it with "what if it does?" Start using questions that unlock energy and possibility instead of reinforcing fear and limitation. You'll notice that the most resilient people, the most powerful people, they've trained themselves to do this instinctively. They don't dwell in blame or pity. They live in forward motion, and that's not because they've had easier lives. It's because they've mastered the art of asking better questions under pressure. When life punches them in the mouth, they don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask, "What is this preparing me for?" And that question right there, that one question, can change your life, because if you begin to see every setback, every delay, every hardship as preparation instead of punishment, everything shifts. Your energy changes, your posture changes, your decisions change. You begin to walk like someone being prepared for something great, not punished for something small. And that belief, born out of the right question, can carry you through anything. You want to elevate your life, elevate your thinking, and to elevate your thinking, upgrade your questions. Start each day with intention. Ask yourself, who do I need to become today? What one decision will move me closer to my vision? What am I grateful for right now? What's one win I can create today? These aren't just words, they're tools. Tools to program your mind, to set your energy, and to build momentum. Because your mind, left unmanaged, will drift towards survival. It'll focus on danger, fear, and scarcity. That's just how the brain is wired. But the right questions act as mental steering wheels. They take that fear-based operating system and redirect it toward growth, progress, and creation. Every extraordinary result begins with an extraordinary question. It's not enough to want more. It's not enough to work harder. If your internal dialogue is tearing you down, no amount of external effort will lift you up. You have to win the war in your mind first. You have to start asking, what does the best version of me do right now? What does excellence look like today? How do I want to feel when this is over? These questions put you back in control. They pull you into a future where you are the author, not the victim, and you have to make this a habit, because the questions you ask yourself consistently, every morning, every night, every time adversity strikes, are programming your future whether you realize it or not. So ask wisely. Don't let old beliefs or emotions hijack your mind with disempowering questions. Replace them, interrupt them, reframe them over and over again. Your direction isn't chosen by chance. It's chosen by the questions you give energy to. So if you want to change where you're headed, start by changing the way you speak to yourself. You're one powerful question away from a new mindset, one shift in language away from a new level of focus. One elevated thought away from a completely different life, because in the end, your life is not shaped by the answers you've been given. It's shaped by the questions you've been asking, so start asking the ones that build, that lead, that empower. Because the questions you ask yourself don't just influence your next move, they determine your entire direction. The quality of your habits is the blueprint of your future. That sentence alone could define your entire life. You don't need a psychic to tell you where you're going. All you need to do is take an honest look at what you do every single day, because your future isn't determined by some big breakthrough, a perfect opportunity, or a lucky moment. Your future is written quietly, consistently, and invisibly in the routines you repeat. Success is never an accident, neither is failure. Both are simply the result of habits compounded over time. We love to talk about goals. We love to dream about the life we want, but the reality is, it's not your dreams that shape your destiny, it's your disciplines. You can visualize your ideal future all day long, but if your daily habits are out of alignment with that vision, you're lying to yourself. And the truth is, most people don't have goals. They have wishes. A goal without consistent habits is just a fantasy. That's why your habits matter more than your motivation. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. Some days you feel like showing up, and other days you don't. But habits are built on commitment, not emotion. They keep showing up when you don't feel like it, and that's what separates the successful from the stuck. The ability to do the hard things long after the mood has passed. Think about it. The person who's fit didn't wake up one day and suddenly have six-pack abs. They just didn't miss their workouts. The person who's confident on stage didn't wake up with charisma. They practiced every single day. The business owner who built a thriving company didn't make one brilliant decision. They made 1,000 consistent ones. Their habits became the silent engine of their success. Day after day, they laid bricks. Imperfectly, sometimes reluctantly, but they kept laying them, and over time, they built something unshakable. Most people want that kind of life, but they're not willing to live the kind of habits that create it. They want change without consistency. They want results without the routine. They want freedom without the discipline. But you don't get to skip the process. And the process is daily. It's unsexy. It's repetitive. It's often boring, but it works. That's what you've got to understand. Habits are your foundation. When everything else around you falls apart, your habits are what you fall back on. In moments of pressure, you won't rise to your dreams, you'll fall to your training. That's why building habits is so critical, because the future you want is built on autopilot. It's the quiet, invisible, repetitive disciplines that no one claps for, no one sees, and no one celebrates. But those are the very things that build greatness. Let's be real, most people already have habits. The problem is, their habits are in the wrong direction. They're unintentionally building a future they're going to regret. Sleeping in, scrolling for hours, eating junk, avoiding discomfort, skipping the hard conversations, quitting when things get tough. These are habits too. And just like good habits build the life you want, bad ones quietly erode your potential. It's not that people are lazy, it's that they're unaware. They don't realize how much their small daily actions are shaping their identity and their outcomes. But once you do realize that, everything changes. Because now you have the power to design your life. You can take inventory of your routines. You can start asking better questions. Is this habit helping me or hurting me? Is this daily decision taking me closer to my goals or further away? And when you answer those questions honestly, you start making different choices. You stop acting on emotion and start acting on vision. You don't feel like getting up early. You do it anyway. You don't feel like going to the gym. You go anyway because you're not building comfort. You're building character. And here's the thing most people miss. Habits aren't just about outcomes. They are about identity. Every time you follow through on a habit, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you believe you are. When you show up to the gym, you're not just burning calories. You're reinforcing the belief that you're disciplined. When you say no to distractions and stay focused, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who finishes what they start. Your habits are a reflection of who you are becoming. So if you don't like your life, start with your habits. Stop waiting for a breakthrough. Create one. Stop blaming your environment. Build new patterns. Stop saying you're too busy. Prioritize what matters, because the truth is, every excuse is just a habit of thought. And the only way to break those patterns is to take consistent action in the other direction. But let me be honest. It won't be easy. You'll want to quit. You'll want to fall back into comfort. You'll feel like it's not working. That's the trap most people fall into. They give up too soon. They plant the seeds, but never stay long enough to see the harvest. Your habits don't pay off right away. They take time. That's the price of transformation, delayed gratification. You have to outlast your old identity long enough for the new one to take root. You want to change your life in a year. Change your habits today. Start small. You don't need to overhaul everything overnight. Start with one powerful habit and do it consistently. Wake up 30 minutes earlier, journal your goals, meditate for 5 minutes. Take a cold shower. Do something every day that builds mental toughness, because each of those small disciplines stacks. They build self-respect, and when you respect yourself, you make better decisions. You don't sabotage, you don't procrastinate, you don't settle. Why? Because your identity has shifted. Your habits create your standard. You won't rise to the level of your potential. You will fall to the level of your rituals. If your habits are low level, your life will reflect that. But if your habits are world class, your future will eventually catch up. That's not motivation. It's math. It's the law of compounding. It doesn't matter if you don't see the payoff today. What matters is you're becoming someone who shows up every day, because consistency is the real superpower, not talent, not luck, not intelligence, just relentless, boring, powerful consistency, and in the end, that's what defines the greats. They don't rely on how they feel, they rely on who they are, and who they are is built by what they do, every single day. So if you want to build a legendary life, start with legendary habits. You don't need more hype. You need more reps. You don't need more speed. You need more endurance. Day in, day out, show up, lock in, execute, repeat, because the quality of your habits is the blueprint of your future. And if that blueprint isn't serving the life you want, redesign it. Tear it down, rebuild it, and build it with intention, because 5 years from now, the person you become won't be determined by your intentions. It will be determined by what you repeated, when it was hard, when it was lonely, when it was uncomfortable. That's how your future is built. One habit at a time. The people you surround yourself with define your standard. This is one of the most underestimated truths in life. Yet it's responsible for more success and more failure than almost anything else. If you're serious about becoming the best version of yourself, if you're serious about changing your life, then you better get serious about your circle, because your environment is shaping you, whether you're aware of it or not. Human beings are deeply influenced by their surroundings. You're not just a product of your decisions. You're a product of what you tolerate, and most of what you tolerate is modeled by the people closest to you. If you're around people who constantly complain, you'll start seeing life through that same negative lens. If your friends cut corners, make excuses, and talk themselves out of growth, you'll eventually do the same. Not because you want to, but because it becomes normal. Your standard is not what you say you want. It's what you accept as normal. And if you surround yourself with people who accept average, you will too. You can't live an exceptional life while hanging out with people who are content with mediocrity. It doesn't matter how ambitious you are, how clear your vision is, or how big your dreams are. If your environment pulls you down every time you try to level up, eventually you'll lower yourself just to belong. This is how it happens, slowly, subtly. You start off with high energy, big goals, and a fire in your heart. But over time, you start shrinking. You start dumbing down your dreams to avoid making others uncomfortable. You start pretending you're okay with less just to fit in. You stop talking about your vision because you're tired of being met with blank stares, sarcasm, or worse, discouragement masked as realism. And eventually you settle into a version of life that's good enough for them but never was meant for you. It's not because you lack discipline. It's because you're human. We all crave acceptance. We all want to feel like we belong. But you've got to ask yourself, belong to what? Belong to a group that pushes you to grow, or one that keeps you comfortable, complacent, and quiet, because you cannot have both. You can either have the comfort of your current circle or the challenge of becoming your best self. One of them has to go. Your standards are contagious. If you hang around people with world-class habits, you'll start adopting those same standards. Excellence becomes the baseline. You stop making excuses because no one around you makes them. You stop playing small because everyone around you is leveling up. When your circle is full of people who demand more from themselves, you naturally begin to demand more from yourself too. And this isn't about cutting people off cold. It's about getting honest with yourself. Who are the people adding fuel to your fire, and who's pouring water on it? Who's clapping when you win, and who's quiet because your success reminds them of their own stagnation? These are hard questions, but necessary ones, because the wrong people won't just slow your growth. They'll sabotage it, not out of hate, but out of fear. Your growth makes them uncomfortable. Your discipline highlights their laziness. Your vision reminds them of what they gave up on. And most of the time, they won't even realize they're doing it. But you do. That's why your circle isn't just a reflection of who you are. It's a preview of who you're becoming. If you're around people with small minds, low energy, and no ambition, don't be surprised when your dreams start to shrink. But if you put yourself in rooms with people who challenge you, inspire you, and live at a higher level, your identity begins to shift. You start seeing new possibilities, you start setting higher standards, you start operating from a different frequency, and that doesn't mean you find perfect people. It means you find people who are pushing. People who are hungry, people who are humble enough to keep growing but disciplined enough to never settle. You want to be around people who make you uncomfortable in the best possible way. People who call you out not because they don't believe in you, but because they do. People who don't let you play small, who don't tolerate your excuses, who see the greatness in you and won't let you forget it. You'll know when you've found them, because being around them doesn't drain you, it elevates you. It sharpens your focus, it upgrades your energy, it lights a fire inside of you, and it also humbles you, because you realize how much more you're capable of when you see it modeled by people who live with integrity, discipline, and passion. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do for your growth is to leave the room you've outgrown, to stop trying to inspire people who have no intention of evolving, to stop shrinking so other people don't feel small. Your job is not to dim your light for others, it's to shine so brightly that others are inspired to rise with you or walk away. It's okay to outgrow people. It doesn't mean you're better than them. It means you're becoming better than the version of yourself that used to need their approval. Growth requires elevation, and elevation requires separation. That's just how it works. You cannot climb if the people around you are pulling you down, and listen. This applies to every area of life. Your fitness, your finances, your relationships, your mindset. It's all shaped by your environment. If you're around people who eat fast food, skip workouts, and justify unhealthy living, that becomes your standard. If you're around people who treat money casually, spend impulsively, and avoid financial discipline, you will too. If you're around people who gossip, blame others, and never take responsibility, guess what? You'll start thinking that's normal, but it's not normal. It's just common. There's a difference. You want to build a legendary life. Then build a legendary circle, people who sharpen you like iron, people who make you dream bigger and act bolder, people who keep you grounded when you're flying high and lift you up when you're falling low. And most importantly, people who live with the same standard you want for yourself, not just in words, but in actions, because at the end of the day, your circle is your mirror. Show me your 5 closest relationships, and I'll show you your future. Show me the people you text every day, and I'll show you the level of thinking you're reinforcing. If you're the smartest, most disciplined, most ambitious person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Elevate your circle, and you'll elevate your standard. Elevate your standard, and you'll change your life. So look around, get honest, audit your circle, upgrade your surroundings. And remember this, the people you surround yourself with are not just part of your life. They are shaping the very standard you live by. Choose wisely, because your future depends on it. The quality of your identity determines your consistency. That one truth explains why some people show up every day with focus, fire, and discipline, while others constantly start and stop, try and quit, commit, and then fade away. It's not just about habits or motivation. It's not even about strategy. It's about identity, because human beings will always act in alignment with who they believe they are. And until you upgrade that internal belief system, you will never be consistent with the external actions required to change your life. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. You can say you want to be fit, wealthy, confident, disciplined. You can post it, journal it, dream about it. But if you don't believe at a deep, core level that you're the kind of person who embodies those traits, your actions will always betray your intentions. You'll go to the gym for a week, but because your identity is still, I'm lazy, or I'm not consistent, you'll self-sabotage. You'll start saving money for a month, but if you still see yourself as someone who's bad with finances, eventually you'll find a way to go backward. You'll read a book or two, listen to a few podcasts, feel fired up, and then fall back into old patterns because your internal thermostat is still set to your old story. That's why most people struggle with consistency. It's not because they lack time or resources or talent. It's because their identity hasn't caught up to the life they want. They're trying to act like someone they don't yet believe they are, and that creates tension. Internal conflict. Every time you try to act against your identity, it feels unnatural. It feels hard, and eventually, your subconscious pulls you back to what's familiar. That's not a failure of discipline. It's a failure of alignment. The truth is, you're always acting consistently. You're just acting consistently with the version of yourself that you believe to be true. If you believe you're a procrastinator, you'll find a way to delay even the most important tasks. If you believe you're inconsistent, you'll keep starting over. If you believe you're not confident, you'll keep finding reasons to shrink back. You're not just living life. You're living out a story. And that story is being written by your identity. The moment you change the story, everything changes. When your identity shifts, your behavior follows. When you start believing, I am a disciplined person, then waking up early, training daily, and sticking to routines becomes normal. Not because you forced it, but because that's just who you are. When you adopt the identity of someone who leads, speaks powerfully, and makes decisions with clarity, your actions will begin to reflect that confidence. It's not fake, it's not hype, it's alignment, and here's the thing most people miss. Identity is not fixed, it's fluid. You're not stuck with the story you were given. You can rewrite it. You can build a new identity through action, repetition, and proof. Every time you do something consistent with the person you want to become, you cast a vote for that version of you. You reinforce the belief, this is who I am now. And the more votes you cast, the more natural it feels. Over time, your brain catches up. It stops resisting and starts reinforcing the new you. But you've got to be intentional. Most people are carrying identities they never chose. They were handed beliefs by their parents, teachers, friends, or past failures. You're not athletic, you're not smart, you're not leadership material, you always mess things up. Those words became beliefs, those beliefs became identity, and that identity became a cage that keeps them stuck, not because they can't escape, but because they stopped trying. If that's you, you have to start breaking the pattern. You have to question everything you believe about yourself. Just because it's been true doesn't mean it has to stay true. Just because you've struggled in the past doesn't mean you're destined to stay there. Consistency starts with belief, and belief can be built. How do you build it? Start by taking small actions that contradict your old story. If you believe you're not consistent, prove yourself wrong with 1 week of follow-through. If you believe you're not disciplined, show up anyway, especially when it's hard. If you think you're not worthy of success, take one bold step toward your goals, even if it's uncomfortable. Every time you do, you chip away at the old identity and replace it with something stronger. Something truer, something that reflects who you actually are, not who you used to be. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent enough to shift the narrative. The goal isn't to fake it until you make it. The goal is to be it until it becomes natural. Walk like the person you want to be. Speak like them. Think like them. Decide like them. Because the faster you start acting like that version of you, the faster your mind starts accepting that identity as real. And once it does, consistency becomes easy. It stops being a grind. It becomes a standard. Think about it. Do you struggle to brush your teeth every morning? Probably not. Why? Because it's part of your identity. You don't need motivation. You don't have to hype yourself up. You just do it because you're a person who takes care of their hygiene. That's where you want to get with your habits. You don't want to keep trying to be disciplined. You want to become disciplined. And when that happens, you don't have to fight for consistency anymore. You live it. So stop trying to force results without first upgrading the version of you that's showing up every day. Stop trying to build a mansion on a shaky foundation. Start with identity, because if you don't believe you're the kind of person who wins, you'll always find a way to lose. But the moment you start believing you are capable, worthy, disciplined, focused, that's the moment everything starts to align. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you believe about yourself, and what you believe drives what you do. If you believe you're inconsistent, your actions will follow that belief. But if you truly believe that you're committed, focused, and powerful, then your behavior will rise to meet that identity every single time. So take responsibility for how you see yourself. Audit the story you're telling. Upgrade the labels you've been wearing, and build the kind of identity that demands consistency not through force, but through alignment. The kind of identity that makes discipline normal. The kind of identity that makes follow through automatic. Kind of identity that turns potential into progress every single day. Because in the end, it's not your goals that determine your destiny. It's your identity. And the quality of your identity will always determine the consistency of your actions. So choose wisely, believe powerfully, and become the person your future depends on. The quality of your standards sets the ceiling for your potential. That line may sound simple, but it's one of the most powerful truths you'll ever hear. It determines how far you'll go in life, how high you'll rise, and whether you'll tap into the greatness within you, or fall short, not because of your talent or potential, but because of what you're willing to accept. Standards are the invisible boundaries you set for yourself. They determine the minimum level of effort, discipline, integrity, and excellence you allow in your life. And no matter how big your dreams are, your standards will decide whether you ever get close to them. You see, most people don't have a potential problem. They have a standard problem. They think they're stuck because of outside circumstances, but really, they've just built a life that matches the standards they've been willing to tolerate. They say they want more, but they live with less. They talk about success, but they settle for average. And that gap, that painful space between what they say they want and what they actually do, is the result of low standards. The truth is, your standards are setting the thermostat for your life, not your goals, not your ambition, not your vision board. Your standards, you can set all the goals in the world, but if your standard is, I hit the gym when I feel like it, or I show up when it's convenient, then you'll never rise above that. You'll fall to the level of what you accept as your baseline, because in life, you don't get what you wish for. You get what you're willing to demand from yourself. There's a difference between wanting something and making it non-negotiable. People who win consistently in life aren't always the most talented, but they've built a life around standards that demand excellence. They've raised the floor, not just the ceiling. They've decided, this is the line, and I don't cross below it. Not when it's hard, not when it's uncomfortable, not when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching, because they know that their standards will either protect their future or destroy it. Your standards are like silent agreements you've made with yourself. If your standard is, I'll work hard unless I'm tired, or I'll be disciplined unless life gets stressful, then you've already set yourself up for inconsistency, and inconsistency kills momentum, it kills belief, it kills potential. But if your standard is, I do the work no matter what, or I operate with integrity even when it's inconvenient, then you start becoming unstoppable, not because things get easier, but because you get stronger. You have to understand that your standards don't just shape your behavior, they shape your identity. Every time you honor a high standard, you reinforce the belief that you are powerful, committed, and disciplined. You begin to trust yourself, you build self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of self-confidence. You don't need external validation when you're living in alignment with your highest standards. You know who you are because your actions reflect it every single day, but most people don't live this way. Most people let life decide their standards for them. They live by reaction instead of by intention. They let comfort win. They let fear decide. They let past failures define their current effort. And because of that, they shrink. Not because they're not capable, but because their standards are too low to support the weight of their potential. If you want to break out of the cycle of mediocrity, the first place to start is your standards. Ask yourself, what am I tolerating right now that's keeping me small? What behaviors have I normalized that are beneath who I'm capable of becoming? What have I told myself is good enough? When I know deep down it's not even close to my best, those answers will reveal the truth. They'll show you where you've been living by emotion instead of principle. Raising your standards is not about becoming rigid or robotic. It's about choosing to live from a place of excellence, even when it's hard. It's about refusing to let your mood dictate your effort. It's about drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is who I am. This is what I expect from myself, and I will not lower that bar for anyone or anything. It's easy to have high standards when everything's going well. It's easy to be disciplined when you're motivated. But true growth happens when you uphold your standards in the face of adversity. When you stay true to your word after the emotion has passed. When you show up even when it doesn't feel good. That's what builds character. That's what separates average from elite. And it's not just about your standards for yourself. It's your standards for who and what you allow in your life, who you spend time with, what kind of conversations you entertain, what kind of energy you accept. If you hang around people with low standards, you'll eventually lower yours just to survive in that environment. But if you surround yourself with people who live with excellence, who demand more from themselves and from you, you'll be forced to grow. You'll rise not because you have to, but because it becomes your new normal. That's the power of standards. They create your normal. And once you raise your normal, everything in your life begins to shift. You no longer chase motivation, you don't need hype, you don't rely on emotion, you move with intention, you operate from a place of personal truth, and that kind of life is rare, but it's available to anyone willing to raise the bar. Don't wait for someone else to set that bar for you. Don't wait for a crisis to force you to change. Don't wait until you've lost everything to finally realize what you're capable of. Start now, raise your standard. Not for applause, not for approval, but because you can. Because deep down, you know you are made for more, not just more success, but more self-respect, more growth, more impact. And raising your standards doesn't mean perfection. It means refusing to stay average. It means setting rules for yourself that protect your future. Rules like, I finish what I start. I don't break promises to myself. I train when I don't feel like it. I choose discipline over distraction. These are not restrictions. They are pathways to freedom. Because when you consistently live above your old limitations, you start living a life you used to only dream about. So stop trying to force motivation. Stop searching for shortcuts and start raising your standards. Because once you do, your potential expands, your capacity increases, your environment upgrades, you stop playing defense and start creating the life you actually want. Remember, your standards are the ceiling of your potential. Raise them, and your entire life rises with them. And if you don't, if you keep tolerating the same excuses, the same patterns, the same low-level habits, then don't be surprised when your results stay the same. But you're not here for the same. You're here for more. And more begins the moment you decide that your old standards are no longer enough for who you're becoming. So raise the bar, hold the line, and never again apologize for expecting greatness from yourself and from the world around you.